do you think your experience in that war made you like anti-war or same patriotism?
You know what, I have an appreciation for war. I understand it, and I think there's a reason why the guys today are rattling their sabers, is because they've never experienced it except on TV. People that have experienced it, you know, guys like, there's a famous quote by Eisenhower and said, hey, I've seen it. I know how brutal and stupid and ignorant it is. He said, it's the last thing I want to do is get in another war. Guys that have never had that experience seem a little too flip about getting into it. I appreciate it. I do think there's purpose to it. Sometimes, you know, they say war is the failure of political negotiation.
Do you believe that?
Which it is. I do. I do. If people were able to negotiate, then, you know, you could probably talk your way out of it. But some people will not be negotiated with, you know, no matter what. And that's when there's a war. A lot of the ones we've been in recently, I don't believe in. I think they were spurious. I think they were manufactured. I think they were profit bases for corporations, because there was no accomplishment to it. I remember, you know, when I was, even after I got back from Vietnam, and then I spent many years, what happened to me was, well, that's a different story. After I came back from Vietnam, I was still in the Army, thank goodness. And because it gave me kind of a pressure chamber. And ordinarily what helicopter pilots did was they would train for a year, go through flight school, they'd go to Vietnam for a year, they'd come back, train other guys to be pilots for a year, and then go back for a second tour. And so the war was starting to wind down. I did not have to go back for a second tour, although I volunteered to do it because I did not like being in the States, because in those days the military were considered pariahs. People did not have the wisdom to separate the warrior from the war. And so they blamed you for the fact that we were in Vietnam, which is the last person you should blame. The country was fickle. People were able to get out of the draft, and I think they felt guilty about it, and they overreacted because of that. So I came back, and when I got out of the military, I fell out of love with the country. I mean, I left the country. I lived outside the country for about 10 years.
Where do you live?
I went back to Asia. I was there for about another 5 years. I was in the Middle East for a while, in Europe, up to Alaska for a couple of years. I just the hypocrisy, and I thought the ignorance of people in general, I couldn't stand. I mean, I saw so many good, you know, the flower of my generation die because of that war, and people who had no business profiting from it did so.